Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. And this is my review of Star Trek Picard Episode 5, Stardust City Rag. And I'm not happy. This one's going to be a doozy, folks. Here we go. First, let me mention that if you like this content, please hit the like button, and also please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications, and thanks for watching. Okay. So we start with a flashback of a Borg drone being dismantled. And they're not using any kind of anesthesia on this poor bastard. Why? I mean, they don't have anesthesia in the 25th century? Now, you may say, well, they don't care about this drone. They don't care if he's in pain or not. But it's not just that the anesthesia is for the patient. The anesthesia renders the patient sedated and more docile, because when you cut things off of or cut into a person, they tend to want to, struggle and fight you and thrash and writhe around. And when you sedate them, you don't have to wrestle with them. So it makes your job easier. I mean, like so many things on this show, it just doesn't make any sense. They just do this because reasons. They did this just to be shocking, to show the audience, oh, you see, this isn't your father's Star Trek. Star Trek is dark and edgy now. We show blood and guts. We say the F word, so deal with it. Then Seven of Nine arrives and kills the people who are doing this. And then we discover that the drone is actually Icheb. And first of all, Icheb didn't even have an ocular implant. Why are they ripping his eyeball out? Jesus. So Icheb was a drone that appeared in Star Trek Voyager. He was one of a group of children who was freed from the collective and became sort of semi-regulars on the show in the later seasons. So now Icheb is dying, and Seven of Nine kills him to spare him from more suffering. We now go to the present. And the crew is on the Siren preparing to go down to this planet Free Cloud to find Maddox. So Free Cloud is this planet that's in the area that used to be the neutral zone. But after the Romulan Empire was destroyed by the supernova, this area became kind of a lawless sort of region, sort of a lawless frontier. So then we find out that this character named Bedazzle, or Bedazzle. I call her Bedazzle. I'll call her Bedazzle. How about that? And she's running one of those Borg. She's running this Borg drone ring because there's this underworld market in Borg parts and Borg technology. And apparently she's gotten a hold of Bruce Maddox, and she wants to sell him to the Tal Shiar. Apparently the Tal Shiar knew about Maddox's work with artificial intelligence, so they destroyed his lab. Well, if they knew about where his lab was and they knew where he was, why didn't the Tal Shiar just kill him or abduct him, since they knew where he was? That way, because if you just destroy his lab, well, he could just go somewhere else and start a new lab, couldn't he? So if you really want to stop him, you're going to kill him, aren't you? I mean, it's the Tal Shiar. They're secret police. They're like, they do the Romulan government's dirty work, or they did. They're going to be totally on board with killing somebody. Why wouldn't they? So, again, reasons. They just didn't for whatever reason. And if you've seen the previews for the episode, you know that Rios, isn't that? Yeah, Rios, he dresses up like a pimp. And Picard is dressed in a beret and an eye patch, as if he were some kind of goofy pirate. And then, so Seven of Nine has a conversation with Picard. And you know what that means. Picard gets to be scolded by a woman again. So we learn from Seven of Nine about the black market in drone parts. And she's a member of this group called the Fenris Rangers, who are like this vigilante group that is dispensing rough justice out in this part of space. Or something like that. And Picard chides her about being involved with the Fenris Rangers, and whoops, that's a big mistake. So she lectures Picard about how the Federation abandoned everybody, and he's in way over his head. He's He's too close to the witness, and he's emotionally involved. You're off this case, Picard. And Picard's like, you can't take me off this case. I quit. And he throws his badge and his gun on the desk, and he storms out of the captain's office. And he goes to find justice on his own terms, because the system is rigged to protect the guilty. Or at least that's what would happen if this was an 80s cop movie. But no, this is Kurtzman Trek. So Picard takes his lecture, and he hangs his head, and he says, he's sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I have a penis. I'm sorry I have a Y chromosome. I'll do better. I really will. Ugh. And we find out that this whole future vision of a utopia that we've seen in the previous Star Trek shows and movies, it was all BS. That was all just government propaganda, basically. And people like Picard and Janeway and Riker and Kirk and Spock were all just naive fools who believed the lies their government fed them and ignored how other people were suffering while the people of the Federation hid behind their privilege. So they come up with a plan to find Bedazzle, or whatever, by offering her 7 of 9, and 7 agrees to go along with the plan. And Picard is going to play this black market dealer in Borg parts, and he adopts this cheesy French accent that I swear would have had Peter Sellers or Monty Python feeling embarrassed. So they meet with this reptilian guy named Voop, or I think it's Voop, and he can smell a lie somehow, but they're able to fool him anyway. And really, Picard's disguise is just ridiculous. And he's portraying this goofy stereotype of a Frenchman, complete with a beret, a cheesy accent, and even I'm surprised he doesn't have a baguette. And why is he even doing this? If he's dealing with aliens, why is he even why would they know what a Frenchman sounds like or doesn't sound like? You know, if he wanted to fool Zug, he could have done better to employ the classic French art of the mime. You see, look at the grace, the subtlety. And then, oh no, he's trapped in a box, and he cannot find his way out of the box, and yet there is no box. Genius, no? So they trade, they make the trade, and they get Maddox, and Bedazzle gets 7, and we learn that Bedazzle is the one responsible for Icheb's death. And we also learn that 7 is, plot twist, a lesbian, and she and Bedazzle were, quote-unquote, very close. So, while this is going on, we learn that Rafi came along because her son is on Free Cloud, conveniently, and she goes to see him, and they aren't getting along because I guess she became a drug addict and kind of neglected her family. And she wants to reconcile with him, and he still doesn't trust her, and he resents her. And honestly, who cares about any of this? Now, 7 wants to kill Bedazzle because of Icheb, and Picard talks her out of it, or so it seems, and they beam back up to the ship. And Picard commends her for not succumbing to revenge and killing Bedazzle, and 7 is like, yeah, you're right, you know, revenge is lame. So, you know what? I'm going to go. I've got a Fenris Ranger who's coming to pick me up. Say, you don't mind if I take a couple of phaser rifles, do you? And Picard is like, why, yes, you can have a phaser rifle. In fact, you can have all the phaser rifles you want, because I've clearly convinced you that revenge is a bad idea, and you're clearly not going to take those phaser rifles back down to Free Cloud and commit a massacre. So sure, you can have all the phaser rifles you want, because I'm a fucking idiot. Jesus Christ, this show. All right, so we get some backstory from Maddox about how he created Daj and Soji. And really, it's all just stuff we, the audience, already knew anyway. And they were created to find out the truth about the ban on synths, because there's a conspiracy and the truth is being hidden from everybody. And it's not just the Tal Shiar. There are other people involved as well. Section 31. Now, in my review of the first episode, I'm pretty sure I said that Section 31 would be behind the synth attack on Mars. And this episode makes me more certain than ever, because Kurtzman and his people can't seem to write any Star Trek that doesn't involve Section 31. Then Dr. Jurati kills Maddox because, I don't know, he knows too much or something. I don't know. I don't care. Look, Jurati is working for Section 31, okay? That's why she killed Maddox. Section 31 was behind the synth uprising on Mars. They hacked the synths and used them to destroy the rescue fleet because they didn't want the Romulans to be rescued. We'll probably find out they were behind the supernova in the first place somehow. Now, 7 of 9 beams back down to Bedazzle's place, and she just kills everybody. And she just walks across the room shooting everyone in slow motion and makes no effort to avoid the return fire, yet somehow she doesn't get hit, and everyone else dies, and just whatever. So, ever since this new iteration of Star Trek began with Discovery, they've been playing fast and loose with Star Trek canon, as it has been established. A bright, optimistic future, issues of inequality have been resolved, there's no poverty, no crime. Earth is kind of a utopia where everyone lives in harmony and no one wants for anything. Starfleet is dedicated to peaceful exploration. Society's main drive is to learn and better itself as human beings. Now, a lot of that seemed to go out the window with Discovery, which was less about exploration, more about power plays and people scheming behind each other's backs, and a war with the Klingons who have cloaking devices somehow 10 years before the original series. Now, to be fair, Star Trek has trashed established canon before. The franchise developed and grew in a haphazard way over the decades. There was no overarching plan for the series, and things would be established in one episode and then maybe contradicted later. One of the best examples of this is the original pilot for Star Trek, The Cage. If you watch The Cage, you'll see that Spock clearly has emotions. He has emotions in that episode. He smiles in one scene, for example. However, when the second pilot was done, they changed Spock to make him emotionless. This was because originally it was number 1, played by Majel Barrett, who had no emotions. But they ditched her character for the second pilot, and Roddenberry made Spock the emotionless one. Also in that second pilot, Spock mentions one of his ancestors mating with a human. Now, we later saw that his father was married to a human woman, so it's pretty clear that that was changed as well, because why would Spock refer to his father as one of my ancestors? He never referred to Spock in that, or to Sarek in that way at any other time. When the Borg first appeared on Star Trek The Next Generation, it was made clear that the Federation had never encountered the Borg before. But then on Voyager, we found out that 7 of 9's parents had been studying the Borg for years, clearly contradicting what we had already been established. And then we had Enterprise changing lots of things, like the Romulans having warp drive. And then you have the change in the appearance of the Klingons, which was a point of contention between Star Trek fans for decades. And then we had DS9, which had numerous episodes where the Federation was portrayed as not so quite ideal as it was thought to be. The Federation was depicted as kind of negligent and somewhat hypocritical, as they abandoned some of their citizens to the mercy of the Cardassians. And that was what gave rise to the Maquis. And of course, during DS9, Section 31 was introduced and became kind of an unofficial covert ops agency that operated outside the laws of the Federation and did a lot of the Federation's dirty work for it. And we also got to see the Federation through the eyes of other people who weren't part of the Federation and didn't necessarily see it as this great benevolent organization, but rather saw it at best as kind of flawed and naive, if not outright hypocritical. But at the end of the day, they never threw the baby out with the bathwater. They still depicted the Federation as mostly good people trying to do the good thing, even if they didn't always succeed or get it right. Personally, I liked this new direction at the time. I like seeing the Federation as not quite so perfect. I don't think that the notions of the Federation and Starfleet and Star Trek in general are above criticism. So when Kurtzman Trek came along, I tried giving it the benefit of the doubt. I accepted the new appearance of the Klingons. After all, they had changed before. The Klingons were aliens. I didn't mind making them more alien. But then the show began, and one episode after another, the optimistic future of Gene Roddenberry was chipped away at. The show was dark, the writing was subpar, the pilots were filled with contrivances without which the stories just wouldn't work. The writers clearly had a poor grasp of even the most basic scientific knowledge, like outer space being a vacuum in which sound doesn't travel, so therefore sonar won't work in space. And of course, the future is female, so the male characters are all depicted as generally dumb or evil, and the authority figures are almost entirely female. But now we have Star Trek Picard, and they have finally taken the mask off and gotten to what this has always been about, destroying the central myth of Star Trek, that humanity gets to a place where it has overcome its flaws and established a utopian society where everyone is equal and no one is suffering. Instead, we learn from Seven of Nine that was all just an illusion, and really, Earth was basically just a gated community where humans got to enjoy their privilege while the rest of the galaxy suffered. And Starfleet officers like Picard were just dupes who basically bought into the Federation's lies. And why? Why would they go this route and pretty much wreck this franchise that is worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars? Well, for the same reason that they turned Luke Skywalker into a loser and Han into a deadbeat dad. The reason that they rebooted the Ghostbusters as an all-female team. The same reason that on Supergirl, whenever Superman shows up, he's always portrayed as less confident, less powerful, and less heroic than Kara is. The same reason that John Connor was killed off in the latest Terminator movie. Because Hollywood has apparently been taken over by Marxists who want to completely undermine and discredit Western civilization. And since Western society was established by and conceived by white men, the laws, the morals, the very foundations of the society, they want to undermine and discredit white men whenever they have an opportunity to do so. Now, as we've recently seen, this whole trend of wokenizing film and TV franchises hasn't been too successful. Aside from the Marvel films, Black Panther and Captain Marvel, these woke remake reboot things have all largely flopped. It's going to be interesting to see just how invested Hollywood is in this nonsense. Will it take a studio going under for them to make a course correction? I don't know. What I do know is that ever since that first season of Disco, I've been watching this shit happen, and I've been just shaking my head and thinking, well, it's their money. You know, if they want to throw it away making crap that no one wants to see, that's their business. And I've been waiting for this latest version of Star Trek to die and Kurtzman to be shown the door, and Star Trek to be given to someone who actually likes it and wants to tell Star Trek stories, not turn Star Trek into some generic, dark, dystopian setting that's kind of a mashup of Star Wars and Blade Runner. But I'm not sure it can be fixed at this point. They'll just have to say that the J.J. Kurtzman stuff is an alternate timeline and ignore it, I guess. I don't know how else they can get back to what Star Trek used to be. I just know that I hope this is the last season of Picard and the end of this shit can't come soon enough. All right. That's all for now. Again, if you like this content, please hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And also, feel free to sound off in the comments and let me know what you think. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.